This meeting is being recorded.
Yes, it is.
There we go. So hello and welcome to the Live and Local Tweed Professional Development Workshop on the business of music. My name is Dave Bergener. I work at Tweed Shire Council and really excited to host this session. It's the second time Council's ever tried to do some music professional development stuff online. Last week we hosted a session about branding and kind of pitching to press, which was pretty successful. And so this is the second one, which is part of a larger project called Live and Local Tweed. It really has like 3 elements to it. One of them is a micro festival, some small scale gigs in Mwillimba over the month of May on Saturdays, and then this professional development workshop side of it. And then later this year, probably around mid to late July, we're going to be hosting an industry forum, kind of bringing together the local music community and talking about what does a thriving live music scene look like. The project is a partnership with a few different groups. The main one is a live music office. I'm glad to see Lucy here today, and Tweed Shire Council. But then we also partnering with Music New South Wales and with Griffith University, who are helping with the evaluation of the project, and also just providing some, I guess, guidance and experience from having done this kind of thing with councils previously. I want to start off just by doing an acknowledgement of the traditional custodians of the land that we're meeting on, or all of us are meeting on different locations, and pay my respects to their elders, past, present, and emerging, and also my respects to any members of the Aboriginal First Nations community in the audience today, and like to pay my respects to the elders and ancestors of more recent arrivals as well. It's good that everyone could come. Nice to have your company. And I think what I might do is just give a little bit of an overview of the plan for tonight, and then pass it over to some of our panelists and speakers who you're probably here to listen to more than to me. So basically, the overview for the business of music session is that we've got a keynote presentation from Vyvienne Abla, followed by a panel discussion, and she'll stick around for the panel discussion with Ollie Twohill and Bob Bialou, and local Mwillimba legend Matt Aitchison will facilitate that. And we'll have some time for question and answer along the way, and at the end to make sure that people get the most out of the session. 2 last kind of admin things before we kick off. One of them is, if you have questions, if you have comments, feel free to just kind of use the raise your hand feature or put things in the chat. I'll keep an eye on that as we go and pass it along to our speakers. And then the other one is through the participation of Griffith University, because we're recording this session and using it for evaluation. There's also a Word document I'm going to post in the chat, which is a participation consent form, essentially saying you consent to this information being recorded. There's a bit more information about the actual evaluation they're doing, and perhaps some follow-up if you're interested in being interviewed or having some more communication with them about the evaluation. So I'll put that in the chat. I know it's a little bit annoying, but if you don't mind to either download that and email it to me, or maybe just sign it and put it back in the chat to me, that would be very helpful. So I'll do that in a moment, and I'll pass over to Vyvienne Abla. Maybe Vyvienne, you can just say a little bit about kind of who you are. We've talked a few times. It's the first time we get to collaborate in our roles. So it's nice. Actually, I should say one of the ideas for the online session is to kind of bring together different parts of the state. So kind of metro and regional music scene talking together in a way that you can't always do face to face. So it's great to have that connection. So if you can maybe just say a little bit about who you are, and then launch into your presentation, and we'll get started.
Yeah, awesome. I'll apologize in advance if I have to cough here and there, because I've got the post-COVID cough, as I'm sure half of our nation does. Essentially, my name is Viv. I'm based in Sydney. I have an artist roster of 5 artists that I manage and organise their touring. I also run a hip hop festival and conference called 4E Sydney, which is usually an annual event that happens in Western Sydney. And then I also produce and get contracted to do a whole bunch of different events and bookings and curating, particularly with local council and other initiatives throughout Western Sydney. So that's probably, I think you need to, do you want to share the PowerPoint, Dave, or try and flip it over?
I'll try to make you the host. Sorry about that. I was just looking for that fifth form, but I'll make you the host and we'll see if that gives you the chance to share your screen. Hold on one sec. Make host. Yes. Okay, did that come through on your end? Magic.
Yippee, here it is.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
All right. I've just realized there's timers on this thing, so which I should probably take off. Once I will talk to you guys. Let me take the sharing. I may as well just talk while I fix that up. So in terms of my artist roster, it's mainly a hip hop roster. So I manage, you may or may not know some of them. So Dobby, who's a composer, producer, instrumentalist, and rapper. Barker as well, another rapper. Singer-songwriter Emily Watermara and Anya Terrell. And hip-hop spoken word artist Luca Lesson. Luca also does, he produces these massive hip-hop theatre shows that I also produce. So I kind of go back and forth in my roles with him and all the artists, and kind of with that in mind, you know, in terms of, I guess, with this, looking at different ways of kind of making money, or, you know, what I also like to kind of think is pretty important is saving money. Okay, I don't know why that's changing. Should we unclick? Why it's not listening. Maybe because I haven't saved it. Let's take that off. Here we go. Good old tech issues. It's been a while.
Yeah,
Right.
take time.
There we go. So I think in terms of looking at making money, I think it's also really important to look at ways of saving money and kind of setting up things in the back end. I have focused this more kind of around the, I guess, merging to mid, but if anyone at any point wants to kind of jump in or kind of wants me to go further in on something, to just let me know. But it'll be pretty much just an overview, because I think in the panel we'll go into more detail around things. But I guess the basics that most people would be aware of, just to cover super quick, obviously gigs and tour and doing shows, now that that's starting to come up to play. But I mean, there's still been a lot of challenges with that, apart from COVID, especially up, you know, up north, kind of around your area with the floods. But that's also been massively impacted because two of my artists live in Mullumbimby. So we've definitely kind of been having issues with that, but having to find kind of alternate ways of kind of bringing in income for them. But yeah, because general, the gigs, obviously merch, publishing and sync is also another massive area, which I've also started kind of working and finding ways of with my artists who are also independent. And I've kind of learned a few things because two of my artists are signed to labels and signed to publishing. And so through working with them, have kind of picked up on ways of independent artists, or ways of kind of reframing how you pitch or how you quote, so that you can actually retain or kind of make more money on your shows, especially when it comes to live streams at the moment, and there being that crossover. There's a licensing fee that should be getting paid to artists on top of your performance fees. Patreon is obviously another really popular one, and doing commissions depending on what kind of artists you are or who you work with. I mentioned Dobby earlier. We got through COVID because he's also a composer. So even though, you know, 80% of our usual flow, like workflow with him, he was able to kind of pivot and focus on a different area or a different skill set that was able to continue. So I think that's also really important, kind of knowing where your strengths are with how you can kind of pivot. In terms of the long term, that kind of retaining your masters, which goes back to the kind of the publishing and sync when you do things, or if you collaborate, with other artists, local councils. You know, sometimes they'll ask you, can you make a track or write something for a particular event or program? It's really, you got to be really careful and tricky in terms of the wording that people use. And I've been kind of going back and forth recently a lot with ABC, with kind of creating or changing the agreements that they generally have done in the past, and kind of pushing them on a first time basis of removing any kind of record agreement or exclusivity like forever, so that no matter what, at the end of the day, whether it's straight away or in 5 years, 10 years time, that my artists all retain their music, because that's money in the future when, you know, people don't really think about that now, but, you know, in terms of things like super that we don't usually do too often, which we really should be doing more of, is trying to really find that longevity so that you've got money now in your pocket, but also later down the track, there's also other revenue streams that are coming in consistently. And similar thing with kind of sponsorships and clothing brands and things like that. So who you know is a massive kind of part, I find, in terms of kind of making money. And it all starts with a conversation. I say this all the time, that my entire career has been built up or started from just having a chat with someone. And whether that's in a situation like this, or going to a gig and meeting people, volunteering at different events. You know, a couple of examples that I can probably give is I volunteered at Blues Fest a couple of times, and then I ended up kind of volunteering, doing PR in the office. And from that, obviously met the entire team at the back end, which then put them and my artists on the radar for things. And from that, have had artists getting programmed, as well as having them support events and festivals that I do in Sydney. Obviously local councils, this is a perfect kind of example. And I think another thing that I've noticed, and I don't know if it's the same up your way or kind of everywhere, but in Sydney at the moment, there's so much money being funneled and the turnaround time is super quick. So local councils are getting grants, organizations are getting funding, and they're having to turn around these programs super quick. So if you're an artist and have networks, know other artists, and you're in touch with the local council or, you know, the events team or the community services department, and they're aware of who you are, you know, if they book you or reach out to you, you could also say, hey, if you need help, I can also help to curate other lineups and kind of help them organize their events, which is also another, again, it's another role of you playing that, again, you can get paid for and to do, whether, you know, you can perform at one event, curate another. And if that experience is really positive, then when that happens again, there's 99.9% chance they're going to call you up again to work and kind of do more. Because there's quite a lot of relationships that I've had from like 5 to 10 years now where I'm constantly being curated, and with like Bankstown Council is probably the one that I've had the longest relationship, and recently have started developing with Cumberland, Parramatta and Blacktown as well.
Can I make a local council comment?
Yes, please.
Yeah, I was going to say too, sometimes the opportunity doesn't come up right away, but the point about the conversation and the relationship is where it starts. Because, you know, I've been contacted in the past by a musician or poet or someone in that area, and at the time there wasn't an event or there wasn't a council funding, but then later on there was, and so maybe the opportunity doesn't come for 6 months or a year, but then because you've established that relationship, the folks at council know who you are. They know, okay, this person can do a 3-piece jazz trio, or this person has production skills. So sometimes it's a council driven thing, or sometimes they just hear about a project and they can give you the information. But yeah, I think starting that conversation is a great way for kind of insular looking council staff to find out, you know, who's existing in the community, what's going on. So just a comment.
Yeah, definitely. I think, I mean, our relationship that we have is a perfect example of that. You know, and I think I mentioned later about leaving your ego at the door with things, but I think if you go in genuinely wanting to make connections and relationships and meeting people, you know, something might happen straight away, or it might happen in 3 years, it might happen in 5, it might happen in a month. You don't actually know. But if they're aware of who you are, what you do, and what you can bring to the table, and they actually enjoy talking to you and interacting with you, then more than likely the second something comes up, they're going like, you know, actually, you know what, I know a person who'd be perfect for this. And that's where the lines start to kind of draw in. And the more you do, the more places you go. And if it's supporting other artists' gigs, just show up, I think is a massive part, and being visible to things. And kind of a step from that is, which I'm not sure what, Dave, you may or may not know, is, if you have any sister city partnerships with other regions, because if you're about to go on tour and there's already people you work with locally who may do other shows or may have other relationships in other states and other areas, that then is a intro in to someone who may give you a chance off someone else who's going to kind of cold call, and I think it's a massive part in terms of being able to kind of connect those dots and keep a steady stream of money and kind of opportunities coming through.
I'll have to check if there's a sister city for Tweed. Although it does make me think, just while we're talking and you're hosting, if you can keep an eye on the admit participants, because if someone signs up while you're the host, you might
will that just pop up?
Yeah, you'll get a little text box that says, Andy's trying to get in, or Sue. So just a heads up in case you see that. Sorry to break the flow, but
no, that's all right. I'll just give one more example around this kind of conversation. That's the kind of conversation channel. So I was based in a youth organization called BIDS, who used to be at Bankstown Art Centre, who are now kind of known as Out Loud. So the director there knew that I was traveling overseas and connected me to a friend of his in London, who I just went and met up and had a coffee with when I was there. That turned into me returning the following year to work on a massive festival, like an arts and cultural festival in London, an Arab festival, which then attending and kind of working on that festival resulted in 2-3 years of traveling and exchanges throughout the Middle East. So going from my small office in Bankstown, I ended up kind of touring for the first time. And so my background is Lebanese. So it was the first time I'd ever worked with artists from within my region. I never would have thought in a million years anything like that would have happened. And I didn't have the expectations for those sort of things. But again, just the importance of just saying hi and having a coffee, or just, being genuine, I think. And obviously I touched on this before. People don't want to deal with shit. And if they've booked you, or this is kind of more if you've got yourself through the door, whether you're kind of volunteering, whether you've been paid to produce something, collaborating with another artist, working with council, being a support act, or kind of running a tour. If you're on time, so I can know your stuff, a great person to deal with, and just an all right, awesome person. People are gonna, if they, again, because so much is last minute at the moment. I can't stress that enough in terms of COVID. The amount of phone calls I've received saying, hey, we need someone tonight or next week, or can you do this? I'm currently programming a whole lineup for this Saturday at the moment. And those phone calls only come through if people know that you're easy to deal with. Because when they've got a super quick turnaround, if you're organized, and that comes back to having your press kit done. If they know they're going to call you for a last minute gig and you've got your bio, tech specs, images, and everything ready to go in a simple, easy click, which one-page link, if anyone doesn't use that, should. Small things like that make a massive difference. And in terms of kind of return and repeat business, I have found have made a huge kind of impact and difference around whether or not you work with someone long-term or whether or not it's kind of a one-off. All right. So utilizing your resources. It may sound really easy and basic and kind of, but sometimes we often forget what you've actually, like what you can do and who you've got access to. Because I'd say normally within 1 or 2 arms of reach, you could probably do quite a lot than what you kind of initially would think if you map it out. Some examples, a big thing that we've been doing during COVID, and I guess we've had the opportunity, we've been able to do it because some artists have kind of picked up a lot quicker, the ones that are kind of a bit more established versus others, or kind of, I guess, one in terms of the employing each other. So Anya Terrell, I think, is a really good example, who you may be familiar with because she's up your way. and Emily Warramara. So Emily at the moment has had a really incredible run in terms of is supporting or was supporting Midnight Oil, the Whitlams, and Icehouse all at the same time. So she's been constantly touring the last few months. Versus, unfortunately, with Anya's tours, from COVID reasons to floods and a whole bunch of stuff, we've had to cancel it 5 times. So we've organized our own tours, canceled them, rebooked them, and had to constantly do it, to now only starting to get kind of back up. She's only started recently doing shows maybe the last couple of weeks. So what we did in the meantime was, because Emily was busy and she wasn't, rather than employing a tour manager with Em, we put Anya into that position. So even though she wasn't making income off gigs, she then became a tour manager and was able to kind of employ and kind of make money that way. And things like that, if you are great at making graphics, if you know your way around a camera, you can either switch. If there's another artist who's playing or doing stuff, you can kind of do things for each other, or support each other's gigs rather than paying support fees. And that's that whole thing around trying to make money, but also save money and find ways of kind of utilizing kind of resources. In terms to that last night around joint releases, like with campaigns and tours, rather than both of you paying for publicity or ad spend, maybe splitting it and kind of working on it together. If you're doing a tour, splitting venue costs, or a sound engineer. So, it might be cheaper to hire them for 2 days rather than 1 day if you can make it like cut a deal, and trying to find ways of kind of pulling things together, like saving costs, but also using what is available to you. Saving money. Matt mentioned this before. Can we talk about accounts and finances? I don't think you can talk about money if you don't talk about accounts and finances. Because you can make money or not make much money and then lose a hell of a lot of money if you don't have your books in place. And if this is kind of like an overbearing nightmare area for you, it definitely was for me. And one example that I'll give for me personally is I hadn't done my tax for about 5-6 years. And so my business was building, obviously, as I was taking on more artists and running more events. And the other thing with funding applications and grants, they're considered income. So if you get a grant for 20 grand or 40 grand or 50 grand, that's considered to the tax agent as your own income. So that's going to boost your level up. So even if it's not necessarily going to you, that bracket of what you're earning is going to increase. And of course, because I wasn't doing my tax on time, when I eventually was catching up and getting on top of things, I hadn't realized that I had hit my GST threshold. And so here I was having to back pay 1.5 years worth of GST on income that I had earned and GST I had not collected. So I had to pay 10% of all my income to the tax agent of money that I didn't collect. So that came out of my pocket, which was very, very painful. And a really easy way of doing it, if you don't want to get an accounting system, if you don't want to spend that kind of money at the moment, is literally an Excel sheet that has an income tab and an expenses tab to see where and how you're sitting on things. Really simple things can save you a hell of a lot of money. Same thing in terms of like your business structure. If you're a sole trader, or when is that right time to kind of shift from a sole trader to a company as well. I think depending on kind of what level people are at, and I don't know how many people in here are artists or managers or kind of from which area of the spectrum, but as well around kind of who is managing it. We kind of were having a bit of a chat earlier around my different artists on my roster. So for 3 of them, I manage all their finances, and for 2 of them, they manage their own finances and are at kind of different levels in terms of what they're earning and kind of what they're bringing in. A couple of things that have really helped them in that area are creating a whole bunch of different bank accounts that are for very specific things, so that you can know how much you need to put towards rent and towards food versus, maybe saving 10% or 5% for like project funds, just so you can really work out where and how your money is going and kind of staying on top of that. And in terms of being able to work out what those percentages are, I think a real big part of looking at anything to do with money is knowing how much you need to make. How much do you have to make to survive for a year? How much is your rent? How much are you paying for food? What bills do you have to pay? Because if you know what that amount is and you have a first target that you need to work towards, and that way it will kind of help structure and lay out what you have to do and where you have to do it. And I've found that in most cases, when you're in a situation where you have no other choice but to do what you need to do and to make money or to kind of make this work, then you generally find ways of being able to do it. And I think if you can set realistic targets, and when I say a budget of how much you need to live, it's to survive. It's not to have extra kind of comfort stuff on there. It's like, what do I need to live and to get through my day? And then that's your kind of first financial target of the year. Research and planning, a similar thing. It's around being organized and looking into things depending on what you're doing. If you're releasing a single, around who to work with, where, if you've only got limited funds, or even no funds, around kind of advertising, where do I spend it? If it's a small budget, is it going to digital marketing? Is it worth going to PR? Is it, if I have $100, am I going to put it on Facebook, or am I going to split it to Instagram, or am I going to go 50-50 on both? That kind of thing. And also seeing who's done what before. Again, with Anya, she recently has been doing a whole bunch of, she did some online courses, and then also hit up a couple of artists who she saw had a really successful campaigns, and they were more than happy just to have a conversation with her to say what did work and what didn't work, so that you don't have to waste your money trying to figure it out. Because most of the time, I'm sure someone who's already done something who can help you just kind of start that little step further. The other thing with merch as well is there's so many sites now where you can actually just, if you don't have the money or the upfront cost for merch, you can actually go to websites, design your merch, and it's done by order. They take a bit of a larger percentage, but you don't have any outgoing costs. So you can design a shirt, not have to pay for anything, and people order it directly from the website and it gets shipped straight out to them, and they take their money back after you sell rather than having to do it prior. I think that's very quick overview of stuff. Hopefully that was
Thank you.
full of switch back over to this.
Yeah, thanks very much, Vyvienne. It's a great overview. Like you say, we've got people with different experiences in the room, and I think it's a great segue to our panel discussion, where we have a chance to start sharing a bit more maybe personal experiences of how that's been done successfully or unsuccessfully. So at this point, I'll pass over to our panel facilitator, Matt. And Matt, maybe I can leave it to you to introduce our panelists. And yeah, just having a look at the time for a moment. It's just coming up on 6:40 or so, and we've got the room until 8. And if we need all that time, we can. If we wrap up earlier, that's fine as well. So I'll pass over to Matt, and thanks again, Viv, for a great presentation.
All right. Well, thanks, Viv. That was it was sobering, actually, and it's really good to hear a business person's perspective. I've got lots of questions from that. So yeah, just I will just a quick thing about myself. I have been in the music biz for 25 years or so, and it's taken lots of twists and turns along the way. So I think variety's been the spice. There's been times when I've been rolling in dough and times when it's been tough. But I've always believed in the adventure of being a musician and the excitement that you get. But I actually get excited when you get paid for things. So I'll be honest. So I came in with a dream, and you know, it's still alive. It's taken more twists and turns than I can think of, but it's good to see Charles, or Bobby. What should I call you, mate? What are we going for?
Call me Charles. It's great.
Charles. That's very
Yeah.
personal. Well, look, it's good to see your face again, mate.
You too, mate. It's been a
Some
while.
time. So yeah, look, Bobby's a very impressive artist as far as I'm concerned. You know, from the moment I met you, Bobby, I've been impressed with the professional, you know, the way that you handled yourself. The first time I ever spoke to you, you said something pretty amazing, and it was something along the lines of, you just seemed so clear in what you were doing, and I was like, well, there's a guy that knows where he's headed. And so, you know, ever since then, I've watched what you've done, and you know, through the lens of, I think this guy's brilliant. You know, I think what he does is so on point and very authentic, which I think is a key ingredient. Ollie, I've known for some years. Just he's a local cat, and very hardworking as far as I can observe. Just got a new single out, which I was flogging today. And I think Ollie's music is really well produced, and you know, I really hope for him that it falls in the right hands.
Thank you.
And you know, real opportunities are created through that great music. So yeah, so I always get excited because I see Ollie downtown, and you know, look forward to the day when I don't see him downtown, when he's like, oh, off on tour. So yeah. All right. So why don't I just ask a few questions of you guys? I might start with Viv, actually. Just straight up, you mentioned something called one page link.
Yes.
And I didn't know what that was.
It is a website where it's pretty much an online press kit. It's just clean, easy, very simple to use. It's $49 a year. And you can have your main press kit, and then there's 3 campaign pages underneath that, so that if you have a single release or a tour coming up or an event, you can kind of create like another page for it. And so, for example, I'll send you Dobby's one. If you scroll down and open up, like if you go click more on his bio, you'll see his bios there, his tech specs, his writer, his insurance docs. You can get videos, social media links, high resolution images, media, and contact details from just one link.
Yeah.
So if I'm on the road or I'm not on my computer and someone's like, hey, can you send me this? I'm like, yep, here you go.
Yeah.
And the beauty about that is, by having it on something that you can edit and change, is that as you update things, anyone who has that link, yes, Bob's also got it. Yeah.
Okay, Bobby's all over it.
Yeah. Yeah. So as soon as you update it, anyone who has it gets an update.
Yeah. So look, it seems like every other day there's a new sort of subscription for an artist, and it would be hard to choose where you put your money, because $49 is real money.
Yeah.
For a lot of people. And how do we know that like, is it taking a gamble on that product?
Yeah, I guess it is. And I think it comes down to, really, if you're limited with what you've got, you need to work out what do I need the most, and where am I going to get the most out of my money for my return. Yeah. So if you've already got an existing website, for example, and you don't have the funds to spend, then you can create a page, a tab that's not publicly listed, and do the exact same thing.
Yeah.
You know, or if you don't have a website, something like one page link is definitely way cheaper than paying for hosting, paying for your domain, and the upkeep of what a site is, because that you literally just punch into the sections. It's, you know, so I think it comes down to the artist and what they need. And like I said, there's always other ways of doing it. You can create it on a PDF, if you document in Word, if you need to, you know, or to not have to spend any money, or use your Google Drive as well. So there's definitely options, but I think it comes down to, what you need and what's the most effective thing that's going to take as much off your plate as possible.
Gotcha. All right, I might move on to Charles. I had a question for you. What have you been doing the last few years? You know, I think it's been tough for a lot of musicians, but and we've all kind of, you know, thought about what we can offer in the absence of live music. And I wanted to hear what you've been up to in that sense.
Sure. Yeah, very interesting. Viv, thanks for that your chat. I really loved it. I think even though you said you said it was short, but I feel like you covered pretty much everything all in all in those slides. It's like it's all there. And kind of circling back to what you said, you know, about your resources. And you know, one thing that I really am behind and think is really important is like your ability to be flexible and open to what's available and what's there. I think for me, I often put myself in a little box, and then that can prevent me from seeing opportunity. You know, when something happens, is like, is it an opportunity or is it, what else is it? And yeah, I went through lots of downs when I couldn't tour anymore and the whole plan was in the bin. And basically the first thing I saw that I could do was I could write more. So I literally just tried to write as much as possible, and in the hope that it would, when the world opened up again, I might have a backlog of music or, you know, something to release. And part of that journey of going down that creative path was my mother is from Samoa, and she lives not too far from me. And one thing that I did is actually thought, I might as well go and sing with my mum, you know, play music with her, because that's just something to do. And the first day that I went there, she showed me an old Samoan song, and I learnt the words, and you know, it was just really fun day having cups of tea with mum and learning language and learning a song. And then the next time I visited, we did another song, and we kept doing songs, and then on the third time I actually took mics, and so I recorded her and myself around the coffee table. And literally tonight, I'm in trouble from my manager. I'm releasing an EP with my mum next week. And so, yeah, we basically put together a Samoan EP of old Samoan folk songs that I recorded with my mum on around the coffee table. And, you know, yeah, that's basically something that happened. And so I guess, you know, in answering your question, I followed I just did what I could. And, you know, in terms of gigs, a friend of mine was playing at the New Brighton markets quite often, and he just asked me if I wanted to play. So I ended up playing market gigs on Tuesday mornings, where we'd get a box of veggies after the... I was mowing my neighbour's lawn for $100, and I ended up loving it. So I was like, who else could I mow? You know, I'd like record songs, and then I'd listen to the mixes while I was mowing lawns. And yeah, I just kind of literally did anything I could. Lots of Zoom lessons. I think I did one. I guess I'm babbling, but I feel like looking back, I just was open to whatever came in.
Yeah.
Sorry, long answer.
No, that's a good answer, because you know, I think other people on the that are here tonight will agree with that. You know, we've all had to do all sorts of things. I actually finished the qualification as a preschool teacher. So
Rad.
so
Awesome.
yeah, I went into working as a preschool teacher in the meantime, and from that started writing kids songs. So yeah, I think it's been a good process for some. It's shot them in a different direction that they wouldn't have had to think of otherwise. So yeah, I might ask Ollie the same question. What have you been up to?
Well, hello everyone. yeah, the past 3 years have been very, very interesting for me, to be honest, because I was very fresh out of high school. Yeah, just done my whole HSC and that stuff, and I didn't really do the best because I was always so focused on the music and I didn't really care about anything else. I was like, I may as well just go hard with the music, and that was that. But yeah, so in the COVID time, I was working a lot. I still have a part-time job that I work at, and then try and push my music as hard as I can. But yeah, so I was working a lot during COVID, and then whenever I wasn't working, then I was writing a lot of music and just putting my head down and just trying to either create content or for my social medias, or just try and get out there and play as much as I could, which was pretty little. I had a few opportunities here and there, but I was definitely blessed to get opportunities for sure, but especially compared to other people. But but other than that, I've been focusing on just trying to keep releasing a bunch of different music. I'm currently releasing another single on the 24th of June, which should be a song called Neverland, which is kind of like a pop punky kind of vibe. So yeah, that's pretty much news from me. Yeah.
I saw that you're an Avril Lavigne fan. So is that the pop punk?
That's my inner pop punk coming out, yes. That was my first celebrity crush when I was about 5. I happened to write a song about that, actually, which, was my most recent single, Silk Dress. So, yeah, nice. But yeah, so it's definitely a genre that I grew up with and really took fond of from an early age. And it's definitely influenced, it's definitely had a big impact on a lot of the genres and a lot of the different styles and different sounds I like to implement in my music. Yeah.
Yeah, cool, man. I'll keep going with you, Ollie. So as an artist, there's this idea that if you just write good music, it will find a way and it will get you places. Whereas I kind of seek your thoughts on that idea. I think your music's great. And I'm convinced that it's the back end of your music. It's the back end, like your admin, your commitment to everything other than the music is what will set you apart from everyone else that wants a career in music. Because we've all got stars in our eyes, and we all can write a half decent song. But the more I see artists, the more I see it's how they take care of their money, how they treat their promotion. Have you got any pearls of wisdom there? Like, do you feel like you've got a tight sort of support system there to let?
I feel like I do have a pretty good system in the sense of I've been extremely lucky. Like my mum and dad have been very, very supportive throughout my musical journey. And they've been, dad especially has been really helpful with helping me especially in the early years when I started, it was like just trying to find my feet and help the business side of things and let me kind of focus on the music. And as I've gotten older, I've started to take a little bit more care of what I do business-wise. But at the same time, dad still does a lot of that for me. But at the same time, I'm very keen to learn it, and will eventually try and take the reins over from him and do it all myself, basically.
Yeah, great. Viv, you mentioned belief before. Are you there? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
I grabbed these key words because I think that's like a key ingredient to the notion that you want a music career. So, and you've got 5 artists. They're obviously what do you say? I'm very impressed with your artist roster. I think it's
I'm very lucky.
Well,
I'm very blessed. One of them's actually just joined the call as well. So.
Oh, cool. I can see. Yeah, and she was I live on a street where she performed, but I was busy the night she came, unfortunately.
I'll have to go back. But yeah.
That was the Citadel in Murwillumbah. So yeah. Anyway, so I just wondered, how much, like, how much does belief come into it for you? When are you getting 100 one-page links a day? So Viv, can you check out my stuff? Can you check out my stuff? And how do you get through that noise? I'm figuring there's a few people here tonight that wonder how they get heard by an artist manager or booking agent.
Yeah, I think I guess depending on, I guess it's the same thing about being out. We're talking about being visible and being present. So Dobby and Barker, I both ended up working with and kind of signing through my festival. So I had actually booked them at 4E, and it was through the relationship that I built and awareness through the festival that put them on my radar and kind of started our working relationship. In terms of me, I mean, everyone is obviously really different, but for me personally, I need to kind of gauge, and kind of Anya and Emily went through this process recently because we've only started working for about the last year and a half now, whereas I like to take my time, because when it comes to something like management, you need the right person and the right person for you, because that artist management relationship is such an important one and a really key one, because you speak to them almost every single day. And even though we're there for your professional career, the reality is if your personal life isn't in check and your mental health isn't in check, you're not going to be able to get up on stage. You're not going to be able to tour, and it's going to impact everything else. So when you're saying about belief, yes, you need to, for me, I couldn't manage someone that I didn't believe in, someone whose work that I couldn't, wholeheartedly take on. And, I don't want to work with someone who I hate or don't like or is an arse. I want genuine, incredible people who care about me as much as I care about them. And so I think it's really important. I think you'll find not to rush into these relationships, because I know of certain situations where artists and managers have had like really toxic relationships, and they've had massive detrimental impacts on the career, but also like personally on your mental health. Like it's a huge kind of step. So I'd say obviously trial and error. I usually have a minimum of a 6-month period where we kind of test the waters. Like public facing, we'll say I'm managing, but internally we've got kind of like an interim agreement before we go full force, just so we can see if I'm right for them and they're right for me.
And are people calling you a lot, wanting your audience?
Yeah, they are, and I'm definitely over capacity. I am actually have a PA who's starting for the first time next week, which I'm super excited about.
This is awesome.
But at the same time, I mean, if people want to reach out and kind of just need advice or whatnot, I'm happy to kind of chat. Like I said, the process of me taking on someone full-time for management is a long process. So again, it's that whole idea of like just having a conversation, and there's other ways that I can kind of engage through the programs and things that I'm in, like kind of part of as well.
Yeah. I'm going to keep moving through. It's kind of weird doing this Zoom emceeing. I'd much rather hang out with you in a pub. But I had a question for Bobby. Leave it with me. Yeah, Bobby, you've actually got a qualification in the music business. Is that right?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, tell us about
who would have thought?
Go for it. Tell me what it was.
Well, I did a Bachelor of Popular Music, which was at Griffith University on the Gold Coast, but it was part of the Queensland Conservatorium. Yeah, so I especially liked that course because it offered everything. So, you basically needed to play an instrument, but there was a little bit of music theory, but there was also like elements of business and even video editing. Basically the purpose of that course was to offer lots of range of different skills, so you could make it basically try something in the industry. And I think you could even put an extra year on become a teacher, so you could be a music teacher as well. And circling back to Viv's PowerPoint, I think like this idea of being flexible and trying different things is really important in this industry. For one, you might actually like it. You might like some other arm that's available. But two, I think it's a good idea to like have a little go at something, so you might know how hard it is. You know, like if you've tried to edit a video, you're like, oh crap, okay. You know, you can kind of get a bit of a gauge on how, like, because people are just going to throw money around of how much something might cost. And if you've had a go at it, at least you sort of can realize how long it might take, or the effort that goes into making a video, or so forth. So yeah, I think that degree or that time for me was really, it was a real great pillar and foundation in me dreaming up, you know, a career, I guess. And also meeting people, you know, like people I've met at uni, or in those times, like I still come across. I literally got an email from a guy in my class who didn't pursue music after the degree, but he ended up becoming a festival. He's now directing a festival in Tennant Creek, and he's just emailed me asking if I want to go to Tennant Creek for a week, you know. And going back to Vyvienne's point on like these connections, these like beers in a pub, these coffees, these like the people that you come across, you will see them again. And it's, you know, the woman that does my publicist was actually, we did a class together at uni. And so, you know, these names keep popping up, and that's pretty much another long answer to your question.
No, I love it. So that's something you'd probably recommend to someone that has good, you know, thinks they've got good music, but needs that back end sort of stuff to support their.
Yeah, for sure. I really think. Oh, sorry. Say again. Yeah, I do. I think that, like, well, maybe not that particular course, but if that course is for you, it's for you. But any opportunity to be educated in whatever way, even if you disagree, is I feel like is strings to your bow. Or, you know, even if you don't use it, like I was pretty clear that I didn't want to do any administration or editing or anything like that, anything computer related. I was pretty clear. I was like, had that in my head. I don't want to do that. I want to create. And so it turns out, after doing a bit of editing and hating it for a little while, I ended up loving it, and I don't mind it now. So I can edit a video and I can do my own sound if I need to. And you know, I guess it's about being flexible and open and willing to be educated. Yeah.
And how much of your career do you think is serendipitous, and how much of it do you think is hard work?
Great question. You know that saying, like, you got to be in the right place at the right time.
Yeah.
I think there's a few extras that they forgot about: the right place, the right time, with the right skills, the right hair, the right attitude. There's so many other things that stem from that.
Yeah.
And I don't think you can ever see or predict those moments, but you can be ready for them, or you can be like, you can have just be switched on somehow. And so I think I've been really lucky. Really
definitely
lucky.
Got the right hair.
Yeah, for sure.
No, you've got that. Tick that box.
Totally, but there's lots of things I don't have, and I think, I think that, you know, there's over the years concentrating on strengths and failing, and just kind of believing. You know, back to the belief word. Just you know, loving what I do and believing what I do, and it's, you know, you just have to be in those positions.
Yeah, and the story's same for me. There's one day I went busking on my congas in Melbourne, and that day a festival guy from overseas walked past. Totally. And it was with Big Stewie, and we were jamming in the street, and he's like, I run a festival in Singapore. We're like, we're coming, you know. And then his festival was run by a festival person from Canada, and, you know, I pretty much owe my career to that one person, because I don't think I'd be busking in Melbourne anymore. So you're right. You needed to have the right. You had to present. You know, you have to have that undying kind of idea that you want to present what you're doing. And so yeah, there you go, Ollie. Yeah, look, I wanted to hear about a success story that you can tell us about. You know, a moment in your music journey that that could inspire.
Yeah, well, a pretty big thing happened very, very recently. A couple of weeks ago, I had the opportunity. I got a call from one of my good colleagues, and well, not colleagues, sorry, one of my contacts that I've met, Nino Haggith, works for Music New South Wales, happens to be the officer for the Lismore area. But yeah, he called me up and he was saying that he was going to be doing an interview talking about the Northern Rivers and all these different artists that have been affected during the floods and that kind of stuff. They showcased 4 different artists. I happen to be one of them. Yeah, so that was a pretty crazy feeling. So yeah, I've been dreaming of that day since I was about 5 years old. For that, so for me to finally achieve that, you know, I'm pretty wrapped. I'm pretty wrapped by it. So yeah.
That's awesome. Is there anything that you've learned from that you've done through the years that you've been doing music? Anything you've been like, you know, a mistake that you've learned from, or a scenario that you've learned from?
I think in the sense of mistakes that I definitely learned from, I think over the years is just overall like attitude towards, you know, investing in myself and trying to put my best foot forward, you know. There were a lot of times where I thought that I could have been taking a lot more care in my career when I haven't been. You know, there's always going to be elements of that. Some days you know, you're not going to necessarily feel like going up and playing a gig sometimes, and other times you're going to absolutely love it and have a blast out there. So music's just like another job in that aspect. But at the same time, once you are up on that stage, I know for myself, I have the absolute best time. But I think for me, it's just the overall attitude of just, you know, going up, showing up, and, you know, no matter how you're feeling on the day, you know, try and give the best, you know, the best representation of yourself that you can, you know, and try and put on the best show that you can, and have fun while you do it, most importantly.
Wow, beautiful. You ever think I should be getting paid more for this?
Honestly, I'm just happy doing what I'm doing, and, you know, once like, if that day certainly comes, then maybe. But at this stage, you know, I'm happy at the stage of the career that I'm at, and, you know, I'm always constantly trying to move forward and trying to evolve. But at this stage, you know, I'm happy just taking my time and write the music that I like, and just trying to be the best person I can be, really. Yeah,
well, I mean, your body of work is there forever, you know. So
that's it.
Yeah. I had a question for Viv. I wanted to know if you could tell us a story about the most interesting stream of revenue you've experienced, like as you know, a singular deal or something that you didn't you know, you might not have expected. It's not the general revenue streams of a musician, like live performance returns and you know, plays on Spotify.
Oh, okay, let me think. I'm trying to work through the artists to see who's done what.
It might be a story from you too. You've probably found, you know, done a few interesting things.
Yes. Interesting revenue streams. God,
I'll tell mine, and then you can think of one.
Let me try and think of.
So again, I was busking on the Gold Coast a few years back, and a guy goes, "Oh yeah, I am building a club in Lombok, and the owner wants music." And so instantly I'm like, "Oh, I could be the in-house DJ in Lombok." But then it turned out that they basically wanted a playlist curator, which was way better for me because I'm a family man. So effectively, it was like, you know, I just negotiated 10 grand over 5 grand over a year to do a monthly update of a playing list that plays, different times of day. So there was 2 playlists, and that was pretty fun, just to organize. Like, it was Cafe Del Mar-ish type music, which is up my alley. And so I was the curator of this fancy resort's music. So that was about my best pay dirt outside of gigs for a long time. I'll stop talking about me. Have you thought of one?
I mean, I guess there's probably so much in my brain that I can't really think, but in terms of, I guess, how I started everything, I think is quite funny.
That is a good story. Yeah, come on.
So I used to go clubbing constantly because I just didn't want to be at home. So I would go out 24/7. And some dude just walked up to me in the club, handed me his business card, and he was like, if you ever want to get onto a guest list, just give me a call. The promoters that, do all the door back. I don't know what's freaking back in the day when there were clubs running. And so I remember taking his card, going home that night, and then just thinking to myself, I don't know why or for whatever reason, but my first response was, no, one day you're going to call me. So the next day I picked up the phone, called him and said, I want to work. And then I got hired pretty much straight away to do like door lists, and was making like shit all money, like $1 a person to go for the door, which most of the time they rip you off anyway. You don't get paid properly. But yeah, so I kind of started out doing door lists and kind of flyering, which then built up to me meeting venue owners and running my own nights, and kind of developed through the club scene, because that's what, similar to I think what Bobby was saying before around what I had access to, like back in early 2000s, it was the music scene in Sydney was all generated through the clubs, like artists were playing at clubs, they were hosting at clubs. So yeah, I was the annoying person who put flyers on your car in the middle of Westfield and up the streets that got stuck to the window.
That's cool. On the street.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so even then, did you have to even then, did you have the idea that you were going to be in the music business?
When I got out of school, I was trying out different areas, and I was always doing the promoting side. So because I started in that end, so music was kind of a consistent thing that was always present. But I had never initially really looked at it as a career until I had trialed 2 or 3 things, and then realized that it was the only consistent thing in my life. And was like, you know what, I'm just going to push all my energy in that direction and see where I end up.
Yeah. That's exciting. I might ask the same question of Bobby. What's an interesting revenue stream that you've come across?
It's
apart from water bottles, cool water bottles. Apart from cool water bottles.
Well, I do think like just making money, like any kind of money, like from music is some form of magic, and I think that's what connected me. I remember, I think the first paid gig I did was playing at an Italian restaurant on Chevron Island on Tuesday night, and I used to get $10 and a bowl of spaghetti, and I was just playing congas with this flamenco guitarist, and I remember thinking then, wow, I've really made it. This is amazing. Getting paid and I'm eating food. And yeah, I think just, that has stemmed, and I still think it's amazing that, when you can be an artist and you can get money from it, it's a pretty special thing. But I guess one random thing that has literally come up the last month is when I was on tour last year, I did a tour with Small Halls. Small Halls is I'm not sure if everyone's aware of that. It's one of kind of run by the Woodford Folk Festival, but it's its own separate thing. And again, this is something that I would not normally do, but it was a really great experience, and it completely changed. It changed me. So we'd play basically in small halls in regional towns around New South Wales. And I think we did about 28 different towns, and I'd only heard of 2. And, like there'd be anywhere from 20 people to 100 in each hall. and I did it solo. So normally, I'd play with a band, but this was solo, and no one came to the gig knowing your music at all. It was all fresh. So it meant it was a different kind of show. I found that less songs and more chat actually went better, and that's something I'd never done before. But during the tour, I ended up doing toasty reviews on, like, for lunch, because there was basically only toasty. So I'd do like a review of, the toasted sandwich in orange, and I'd give it like a score out of 5, and I think I did maybe like 6 or 7 or something like that. And then I got home, and this breakfast, there's a t-shirt company that are breakfast shirts. They're called breakfast shirts, and they sent me a bunch of shirts because they were watching my toasty reviews. And then they've literally asked me, they're going to pay me to do toasty reviews and send it to them. When I'm on the road next. And so I guess I'm getting paid to eat bread and cheese, and I think that's real life magic. So I think that's going to be my most amazing. I'll probably stop music actually after that.
Yeah, go into
That's
toast.
brilliant. It's so good.
Yeah. So I guess you just never know. And I feel like you need to expect the unexpected, because there's going to be all sorts of things that pop up, and maybe it will be an income stream. Maybe it won't be, and some things that you think might work might not. And yeah, it's a little game. Get on.
Yeah, mate, it's exciting. Look, I'm being asked a question by Dave here. How do you set up your business? Are you a sole trader? Do you have did you get some advice along the way of how you should set up your business?
Asking me?
Yes, Charles.
Yes. I've had, I think, when I was younger, I was scared to ask questions because I thought I should know them. And so I think when similar to the Viv story, I remember thinking about trying to get my taxes done, and it made me feel very anxious, and I thought I couldn't really ask anyone about it. Eventually I did, and I got it all sorted, and it wasn't that bad. And so I am a sole trader, and there's I've learned about lots of different, that works for me at the moment, but I have, I just have an accountant, and I'm pretty hands-on as well. When, I really because I hated spreadsheets so much, I thought I should get into it. And, I think from doing my first budget and like trying to get my head around the numbers, that really got me invested in, okay, I really need to know more about this. I need to be organized, and I think that the money is really, it's really important, and it can be a real drain on your career if I'm thinking about money too much and not writing about, I don't want to be writing about my accountant. Yeah. Writing songs about it. So yeah, I basically, for me, what works is a simple setup, and if things take off or get even bigger, then I know that I'll have to educate myself to change it.
Yeah, and consult your accountant, I suppose, as well.
Yep. And I guess circling back, it's about asking questions. I feel like no matter what it is, ask someone.
There you go. That's good advice. I met Colin Hay, who wrote Land Down Under once upon a time. I think it was at Woodford Folk Festival, and he said, never try and write a song until you've done your tax. And I know if I haven't kept my numbers up, then there's no use trying to write a song, because I'm thinking about that I have to do my taxes, things I have to do. So that stuck with me, is like you need to take care of those sorts of things to free up your mind to write, to be creative, Ollie, how do you set up your business, mate?
I guess in a sense with my business, it's a little bit more it's a little bit more different to how Bobby or yourself might run it, in the sense of since I am kind of in the very, very early stage of my career, I'm still kind of learning things on the fly, like a lot. I'm learning heaps of different things every day. And myself and Dad have been going to different workshops, that kind of stuff, to educate ourselves on what kind of things we need, whether it's an EPK or sorting out our taxes, that kind of stuff. And really just trying to get as much information as we can, as well as with going to those different workshops and events like these. The networking opportunities are always just so they're just such an amazing thing, because meeting other contacts, that's how you can find yourselves gigs. You can meet different booking agents, managers, etc., whatever you might need or whatever. But I definitely see a lot of my business and stuff like that shaped from a lot of the information that I've gathered over the years, whether from workshops or other information.
Gotcha.
Over the years.
Yeah. I think a big moment in my music career was when I opened a bank account with a music name, and I was so proud of myself that it just felt official. So I'm a sole trader too, so there's a 1,000 different ways to make money, but it all just goes into my musician business.
Yeah, I'm the same in that aspect.
It's nothing tricky there. Viv, got a question for you. Would you ever manage a band?
Yes.
Have you thought about it? Have you thought about managing a band versus managing a solo artist?
It just depends. I mean, I don't go out there thinking about whether or not the artist is solo, whether they're in a kind of a group or what genre they're in or what they do. It's more around if I'm like, obviously, if there's a connection between me and the artist, and if I'm really into their music and can believe in it as much as they do, so that when I'm pitching and kind of trying to advocate on their behalf, I have as much passion about them as they do. Otherwise, it doesn't really kind of work. It's definitely way more logistical.
Right.
So Dobby is actually in a band called Jackie Brown Jr. And I do get messages every now and then from them.
Like manage the band.
Just manage us all. But I do meet with them like every so often or once a year, every now and then, when they do need help with something, because I know they're actively trying to find management or an agent. And I've had sessions where I've just sat down with them and just said, like, throw me questions.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm always open. I'm open to anyone. I would never say no, a straight out no off the bat. Yeah.
Do you have like an order of importance, in terms of booking agents, managements, labels? Do you have this order that you like to go through with your artists?
I do, and they're different for everyone. So, so for example, at the moment, like Barker and Emily are pretty much signed up. So they've got label, publishing, and booking agents.
Yeah.
Anya has a booking agent, and for her, I know one of her key things that she wants to do is label. So now we're focusing our attention towards a label. For Dobby, because of the type of work that he does, for me, my number one target is publishing, kind of signing a publishing deal, which we are currently in negotiations with after about 6-7 months of kind of having that. But because he composes, he writes, he produces, like he's just like a triple threat for them. And I know we can make a lot more money kind of, and like I said, add an additional revenue stream on top of everything else that we're doing. And he's got such a massive catalog that it works, as well as booking agents. So booking and publishing for him, because we kind of have a conversation maybe like once a year or once every 2 years around the whole label conversation and staying independent. And he still feels that together we've still got a lot more to do independently. He doesn't really want to sign from a label standpoint yet. So
you still believe in the label idea? Like, it seems to me it comes in and out of fashion, but it's still it probably doesn't happen like it used to. Like, they've got a demo cassette and listened to it and went, whoa, we need to meet this person.
No, you need to be way more kind of advanced than back, because before they used to pick you up and really kind of develop you and kind of work with things and polish you and kind of help with direction and your presence and your you know, your fans and that, whereas now they want you ready to push out. Do I believe in them? Do I not? I mean, obviously they have have their major systems they can churn out, and you can reach a certain audience and kind of have a large backing, which obviously always helps. But is that right for every artist? You know, no, it's not.
I don't think so.
No. And I think it just kind of, and it's been really an interesting process, because like because I said I have a half a label that's signed, one to a major. Well, they're both kind of, one's kind of Barker's signed to Bad Apples, which is linked into Ireland, which is Universal. So it's pretty much Universal. Emily's got a licensing deal with ABC, and they're kind of in this really interesting space around those whole idea around master rights, especially with First Nations artists, in terms of them not being able to own master rights. So they're leaning more towards licensing deals now rather than recording deals.
Sure.
And then the others are kind of not wanting to. But it's been a really interesting process having to work have one foot in each world at the same time. And comparing the difference.
Look, I'm getting some questions here from some very important people. We've sort of covered types of businesses. Let me just have a read of them. I'm curious about different business structures and minimizing tax obligations, from Dave. Does anybody want to answer that question? I could answer it comfortably, but Ollie or Bobby? Charles? Oh.
I haven't looked at non-for-profit. I have looked at the different structures. I think for me, when I felt out of touch or not sure what to do, that's when I knew I needed like some people to riff off, and it led me to my current manager, and we talk about this all the time. So I think having someone to talk to find, because every situation is different, and like I think about music industry, the thing which people say sucks about it, which is that there's no roadmap, is actually amazing. It's actually great because it means you can make your own roadmap. So I think that the structure for every single artist, band, it's different when you've got more people. Obviously, I've got friends that in a band and they have like a trust, and there's all sorts of different structures that they've researched and they've found out. And I think because there is no do A, do B, then you'll get C. It's just like make it up, make it work.
Yeah. If I'm completely honest with my setup, I'm a sole trader, but it feeds into a trust. So as far as tax minimization goes, effectively my children are my employees. And I've come to the idea that money is a system designed by people with lots of money, and it's a system to be maximized by people who are smart enough to know how to move it around. It's and so I don't really know how to answer that, except that in terms of minimizing tax obligations, because you get it along the way. I think you'd say that, wouldn't you, Charles? You get a little bit of information each time you do your tax, or each time you meet with someone that knows what they're talking about, and you go, oh really? I can claim my sneaker addiction. I can put my shoes on the tax. Wow. Well, I bought shoes anyway. So, you just do keep finding ways. I've got a question from Bob here. a shift towards the smaller gigs? Is it I think as you're saying, is there a growing demand for diversity of venues rather than going to pubs and clubs? Yeah, why don't we ask Ollie? You've done a lot of interesting gigs around the Tweed, at least.
Yeah, I would say personally, like the more venues there are, the better. Obviously, like for all different musos and artists at any different level. But I do love the pubs and the kind of venue kind of scene, and I also love doing. There's one type of gig that I really love doing is at the local cinema in Wollongbar. They do like a balcony session there where you'll just play 2 hours of music or whatever, and just nice relaxed vibes all on a balcony up by the old theatre there. So it's it's something a little different. There's new kind of venues like that always popping up that that they're keen to showcase different local artists from the area and just get music happening at their venue, which I think is great. It's always good to see.
Yeah, and so things like this live music program that we're getting in Murwillumbah. I love to see music on the street, and obviously that's actually where I got my start. Seeing all these little gigs is actually pretty exciting. At the same time, it doesn't suit every artist. We're not all singer-songwriters, so
that's right.
We need a bigger sound system. I do dance beats, so I need something that punches, so look, I just want to ask Dave something. Are we taking questions from folks? I just wondered if there's anyone that wanted to ask questions either on the typing chat or the or just speak out. I don't know if that's possible. Who have we got with us? Tim would probably have something to add if we could hear him. Mr. Stokes.
G'day.
You're a valid panel member too, mate. Most certainly.
Thanks. Yeah, no, it's great to be listening in. Thanks for all the information. I'm kind of curious about like revenue raising through the Spotify and iTunes, and if there's any tips from Bobby or anybody else out there that might have like how to get on playlists or maximize when you do release your music. Is this what are the best ways of getting that sort of revenue?
That's a good one. Did you want to answer that, Charles?
Well, let me know when you find out. Basically, I think that for me, it was a question of not hating on it. That was what got me over the line, I think, with supporting something. And from like a philosophical perspective, I sort of think if you give anything energy, then it will grow, And so for me, Spotify, it could have been a sore tooth and something that I could have complained about because it's not doing this or it's not doing that. But I basically just got into it, had a listen. I use it. I use it as in I make playlists. I look for music. I did, listen to a few like Zoom calls like this about different people's different approaches and what they do, and I just kind of do what you're doing, and basically what I came down to is like I'm like, oh well, I'll make a monthly playlist of music I like, and then I'll share that with the people that follow my music. And it actually became really fun because I was actively searching for music. And then after about a year of doing it, I had maybe 1,000 followers. And then when my EP came out, I put my EP on that playlist and 1,000 people listened to it. So that was something that I just kind of made up, I guess, or I worked out, and I don't know what effect it had, but the thing that I think I'm trying to say is that I just kind of made it fun for me. And, I think the one thing that Spotify doesn't have that I'm really interested in is meaningful listens. So as much as there's all this attention on, getting on a playlist and getting the numbers right, I think for me and my audience, like I'd rather 100 people actively listening to this song and they're into it rather than it being on in a cafe or, getting 1,000 plays, but no one's listening to it. And look, that's just me. It's not for everyone. Other people will disagree, but I figure that if all my people are playlisting the song, then there's an active, that's more valuable to me, to my live circuit and my live shows. So I think I'm just I'm sort of riffing along now, but that's all I know. I literally don't know anything, and I'm like you, just listening and learning and trying things and enjoying it on the way. I figure wherever I get to, if I have fun every day, I'm gonna be at fun.
Yeah, good.
Right. What do you think about that, Tim?
Yeah, it's great. The idea of funds is a great little theme running through this meeting.
Yeah.
Sure.
Oh, sorry. Another thing I will add actually too is that I also started in amongst my research and everything is I also started another artist page. It's called Here with Bob, and it's basically me playing ukulele meditation music. So it's literally like little arpeggios, and I do these 20-minute albums. And basically I saw that there's this massive, lots of instrumental music is doing really well on Spotify. And it's something I just do all the time anyway. So I might as well record it. And I literally just record birds, and then like it's quite soft music. They're 20-minute albums, and I've kind of released that, and then the monthly listeners are going up and up. I don't even ever check the account, and my plan is that in 50 years I'm going to check the account, and maybe there could be like $1,000 there. No, just joking. I think that volume, and because I met a guy who does piano music, and he basically he's been doing it a long time, but he nets about 15 grand a month, and he does about an album a month for the last, I don't know how long, but just from his streams. And it's been a long time. It didn't just happen like that, but that's just something that's really interesting.
That's good. Look, is there any other questions of our panel? Anybody wants to ask? Anybody out there? No. Well, look, I reckon we can wrap up about now. I want to thank everyone for joining us. Unless Tim, I'm mindful you're a champion and you're always asking questions. I think that's a great thing. Have you got any more questions?
I think I'm pretty easy. Oh. I just dropped my camera, obviously. No more questions. I think that was pretty rad.
Yeah, great.
Yeah.
Look, I think that, yeah, look, just quickly, I was just chatting with my hairdresser today. I know I don't have much hair anymore, but she makes what I have look better than I could. But there's just, you do set yourself apart if you pursue the business end of your thing. My hairdresser's got a partner in a Triple J-ish band that's out on tour, and I love tour stories because I barely tour anymore. But but they're like, oh, sometimes we come home with enough money to buy dinner. It's great. And I'm like, that is just that's pure. I love that. The first time I ever got paid for a gig, I was like, did I just sell my soul? Like, have I just pimped myself out? And I've dealt with that over the years. But I think, it's actually, Charles said it, it's a joy to make money. Like I it's buzz out most days that for 25 years I've swung 2 pieces of wood and made a living. It's just insane thinking of what you could do with your life. It's just the coolest thing. So I think there's also a push towards local gigs. I was also talking to my hairdresser. It's like, yes, you can have a career locally, you know. So, you know, I think that's a beautiful thing. I think if I had more time, I would ask everyone, you know, what their ambitions were, but it's more about the business of music. So if there's any other questions about business, you know, things like how to make money. Is there any questions out there? No. All right. Well, why don't we just? I'll just. I can see Dave has clocked out. His microphone's not working, so he can't wrap up. But why don't I ask each of the panel members for one more little bit of wisdom, or give us a little bit of pump on the music biz. Viv, you go first.
Saying in simplest form, knowledge is power.
Ooh.
Really educate yourself, and you know, similar to what Bobby was saying in terms of learning different tools. One bit of advice that I kind of got from like my dad and my uncle, and also by seeing it. So they've got a Lebanese sweet shop that my uncle's been running for 30, 40 years. And even though he doesn't do everything, he knows how to do everything, or knows enough to know when something isn't right. So he can walk past the station and already know if it's not going to turn out how it needs to, because he knows enough of the process. And I think that is an important thing to know and to remember, and the same thing for your career. And, you know, you are a business and you need to know enough about every aspect of that business, so that when you start employing a team or kind of working with other people, you know, you can pull things up before they become, you know, become an issue if need be.
Gotcha. And so on that, just a quick question, like there is a lot of things asking us for money as a startup artist. You instantly get messages and emails from people who can get you followers, who for a fee, who, you know, how much do you put on Facebook ads? All this kind of thing is things that we just, most of us have no clue about. All these little ways that all these little businesses that you could pay money is like, do you have a trust of those things, or a complete distrust?
Anything that tells you they're going to get you followers, don't do it.
Right, there you go.
Because they can't guarantee, no one can guarantee anything. Otherwise, Facebook and Instagram would do it themselves.
Yeah.
And those that do just do it, add all these bots to your page, which will get your page shut down, because now there's systems on all platforms that can identify when likes and followers have been purchased, and they'll just shut your account down.
Yeah. And what about Facebook ads? Is that still even a thing?
It definitely is, unfortunately, because the more and more Facebook goes, they're trying to force people to have to pay to get noticed. But again, there's online courses and small workshops that even Facebook run that you can do for free, or watch YouTube videos to learn a few tricks and tips around kind of what to do and how, so you don't waste your money like straight up. Like you could run an ad for $1 a day for a month or 2 months and just kind of see the trickle of the impact, and then see what works in terms of content. You know, a photo versus a video versus a 15-second video to a 30-second to a live snippet to something really kind of manufactured, and play around with it until you see what people like, and then add more money or tweak kind of the audiences. So I think definitely digital marketing, especially through COVID, I found was more effective than kind of PR, because it was I think it's PR starting to kind of come back in now, but there definitely was a lull period when there just wasn't writers or journalists, and
nothing to promote.
PR suffered quite highly for a while there.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. Well, thanks, Viv. Hey, Ollie, did you do any online gigs when we were in lockdown?
I most certainly did, and it was the the weirdest experience ever. I'm not gonna lie. It was really strange. It was nothing like I've ever done before. Sitting in front of a camera and there's people virtually there, but yeah, it feels like you're playing no one. It was just weird. But at the same time, like, you know, you do get used to it. I noticed my personal self, it wasn't my favorite way of performing. It definitely did feel a little bit artificial in a sense, but like my big purpose in life, well, my big thing is that if I'm not enjoying something, I can always figure out a way to enjoy it just by repetition. You know, it's just that simple thing. If you know, if you just keep trying it, eventually you'll probably like it. You know,
like your tax, even.
That's it. You know, it can be anything, even just as little as, well, for me, going to work. You know what I mean? Like that mental thing of like, if I go in with a positive mental attitude, think I'm gonna have the best day in the world, then I will.
Yeah.
You know? It's just those little things. You know, you can apply the same with your business. You know, if you're thinking, you know, these things, you know, might need a little bit of tweaking, but you know, with time and enough, you know, time and effort and energy put into it, you will get there. It's just you're just going to be patient with it.
Yeah, great. Well, look, thanks, guys. It's good to chat. Good to meet you, Viv. Lucy's quickly going to wrap up now. Thank you for having me. I hope it's been fun.
Thank you, Matt. Thank you for taking us through tonight. That was just such a wonderful chat. Dave's mic isn't working, but I just wanted to say as a few closing remarks, a big thank you to all of the speakers for your time and generosity and your thoughts and your knowledge tonight. This is all just absolute gold, this kind of information, particularly for new and emerging musicians. Yeah, thank you for providing those insights this evening. There's one more live and local micro festival coming up this weekend in Murwillumbah, so we encourage everybody to come on down and check out the local artists who will be playing in amongst the CBD of Murwillumbah, 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. And yeah, check out more the other professional development session for Tweed's live and local program. And the last thing I would encourage everybody to do who is local to the region would be to come along to the live and local industry forum that will be happening in the upcoming months. Stay tuned for details. That's a really important moment for the local community to have their say to council about the future growth of the local live music scene across the Tweed region. So we'll leave it there. Thank you, everyone. Thanks so much for listening in tonight, and thanks to all our speakers.
Good on you.
Cheers.
Thanks. Bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you for having me.